This young black man had a long, tiring day at work. But when he saw an elderly woman stepping onto the crowded bus, he immediately offered her his seat without thinking twice. To his surprise, she handed him a note that would change his life. Marcus, 23, had just arrived at the bus stop after a grueling day spent operating machinery and cleaning at a production factory. As he saw the bus pull up, he jumped on, grateful to find an empty seat since the bus was usually packed in the evenings. He was exhausted, his whole body ached from the day, and his toxic boss had vented his frustrations on him, as usual. He had been up since 5 a.m., barely having time to sit down. Once seated, he noticed no one paid him any mind. Everyone was too engrossed in their phones or lost in their own problems. Leaning back, he thought about how he couldn't keep this job for much longer. It was wearing him out. While he was lost in thought, the bus slowed to pick up a new passenger. An elderly woman stepped on, looking frail and unsteady. She moved slowly from the door to the aisle, and upon seeing all the seats taken, she leaned against the window, clearly uncomfortable, but with no other option. No one in the city seemed willing to help her. Everyone was too self-absorbed. She just wished the bus would move faster so she could reach her destination sooner. As the bus jolted, she winced, her waist and knees clearly in pain. Marcus looked up and noticed her struggle. Feeling a wave of compassion, he called out, "Hey Ma, you can take my seat." The woman was taken aback at first, not believing someone in the city could be so kind. She smiled gratefully and shuffled over to sit down as Marcus helped her settle. Just 3 minutes later, Marcus reached his bus stop. As he called out to the driver to slow down, he felt the frail woman's hand grip his jacket. She turned to him, surprised, and then he felt her fingers sneak into his pocket. She slipped a note inside, and before he could ask what it was, other passengers pushed past him. Marcus stepped off the bus, which sped away, and everything felt surreal. Why had she put a note in his pocket? Maybe it was just a thank you, he thought. As he pulled the note from his pocket, his jaw dropped. On one side, there was a street address, and on the other, a 5-digit code written like a cipher: 5 Queen Street 88687. It was utterly confusing. Marcus tried to make sense of it, but nothing clicked. After pondering for a moment, he folded the paper and stuffed it back in his pocket, heading home. He needed rest more than anything. Once home, he took a quick shower and tried to relax, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't sleep. His mind kept drifting back to the elderly woman and the note. It was clearly an address, but was it a trap? He spent that night tossing and turning, contemplating what to do the next day. The following morning, Marcus took the bus again, hoping to run into the elderly woman and ask her about the note, but there was no sign of her. He held on to the hope of meeting her later that evening after work, but again, she didn't appear. Frustration and confusion began to mount as he wondered what message she intended to convey. The note lingered in his thoughts for the next 2 days. His curiosity piqued, so he made a mental note to visit the address on his day off. Fridays were always his day off, and he usually used that time to do laundry. But that Friday, Marcus decided to check out the address and see for himself. He wanted to be careful and not walk right into a trap. He took the same bus where he had first met the elderly woman and headed towards the address. It took about 35 minutes before the bus arrived at the destination. When Marcus got off, he found himself in a neighborhood that seemed quiet and eerie. He saw the house, but it was a large, intimidating estate surrounded by gardens and trees. The whole area felt serene and natural. As he looked around, assessing the surroundings for any signs of danger, he felt satisfied that he was safe. He approached the grand gate and knocked, but there was no answer. It made sense since there was no gate attendant, and the house was too far for anyone to hear. When he pushed the gate open, he noticed a panel near the keypad. Curious, he examined it and found a small monitor with a keypad that required a security code. He wondered what it could be until it hit him, the 5-digit code from the note. Marcus pulled the note from his pocket. "Here's a cleaned-up version of your story in English." As he typed in the code, he was immediately allowed in when the gate opened. He stepped into a large complex and noticed a big house at the end. Walking toward it, he hoped to uncover the mystery behind it. Upon reaching the front door, he pushed it open and entered a spacious living room, where he saw something shocking to his core: the same elderly woman he had met on the bus. She was sitting on a sofa with a bright smile on her face, clearly having been waiting for him. She looked so pleased to see him. Marcus had many questions for her, and the woman introduced herself as Vivian. Curious, Marcus asked why she had brought him there. Vivian thanked Marcus for helping her on the bus, explaining that she had gone for a medical checkup that day and couldn't get a bottle cap, which was why she chose to take the public bus. The elderly woman offered Marcus a drink, but he politely declined. He wondered why she had called him there. Vivian cleared her throat, trying to maintain a serious atmosphere. On the other hand, Marcus felt quite uncomfortable and wished she would just open up. Finally, Vivian took a deep breath and expressed that she needed a caregiver. She was ill and, at her age, could hardly manage around the house. Her health was deteriorating daily, making it difficult for her to navigate a house as large as hers. To show she was serious, she revealed her salary offer. Marcus was shocked her pay was 6 times what he had earned in his previous job. It felt like a dream come true. Suddenly, Marcus felt his worries fading away, and he quickly accepted the job offer. Vivian was delighted. In the past 4 years, she had hired over 7 caregivers, most of whom either stole from her or got bored and left. But she felt she could trust Marcus, who had already proven to be caring. Marcus only requested a few days to sort out personal matters before starting. Vivian agreed, bidding him goodbye. As he stepped out of the house, he felt a mix of emotions, contemplating his new job and the challenges ahead. He wondered why an elderly woman would choose to live alone in such a large house. Vivian was cheerful and kind, and he was confident he would enjoy the job. Marcus showed up at the factory to submit his resignation. His boss was surprised by his decision but offered to double his salary, knowing he had often belittled Marcus in the past. It was clear that his boss was venting his frustration on him, understanding that Marcus needed the job and wouldn't quit easily, but also recognizing Marcus's hard work made him irreplaceable. However, Marcus had made up his mind and politely declined after 2 days. Marcus began working at Vivian's house, where his tasks weren't too heavy. All he had to do was make breakfast for Vivian and ensure she took her medication. He also prepared her bath, washed her clothes, and tidied up the house. After work, he would grab a drink and watch his favorite shows on TV while Vivian often dozed off for hours. When she woke up, they would sit and chat. Vivian was a storyteller, and she entertained Marcus with tales from her past. He enjoyed listening to her deep wisdom. They would talk for hours. And then he would make dinner for her, ensuring everything was in order before deciding he was done for the day. Marcus formed a strong emotional bond with Vivian, and her home felt like his second home. He began to view caring for Vivian not just as a job but as a responsibility. She loved Scotch eggs, and he made them for her every morning, attending to all her needs without complaints, always polite and kind. As time passed, Vivian grew weaker, struggling to move even 10 steps, her breathing becoming faster, as it seemed her heart would fail. Marcus was always by her side, reading the newspaper to her and watching soap operas on TV together. One morning, as he walked into the living room with some cookies he had bought as a surprise for Vivian, he was met with a shocking sight. Vivian was struggling to breathe. A terrifying scene to witness. In deep panic, he grabbed the phone and called emergency services. After 15 minutes, the ambulance arrived and they took Vivian to the hospital, where she was given 4 IV fluids. The doctor recommended some medication for her, and Marcus was relieved he had come in early that morning. He felt anxious standing beside Vivian, holding her hand and praying for her safety. 20 minutes later, Vivian woke up, looking at Marcus with a smile. She thanked him for being there for her. Marcus claimed he was just doing his job, but he knew it was more than that. Vivian was discharged that night, and they took a taxi home. When they arrived, Marcus prepared scrambled eggs for her. After she finished eating, he guided her to her room and helped her bathe. She curled up in her thick blanket, and even though it was late, she wished him good night. But Marcus had no intention of leaving. The morning's events still haunted him. He knew if he had come just 20 minutes later, Vivian might not have made it. He didn't want to leave anything to chance again. There were 3 spare bedrooms, and he planned to sleep in one of them. Vivian thanked him once more for everything but reminded him that it was late and he should go home. Marcus insisted that he would stay the night, so she bid him good night and headed to one of the bedrooms. Little did he know the consequences of this choice. A few minutes after midnight, Marcus was awakened by a strange noise. He got up to check on Vivian, but she was sleeping peacefully. Feeling satisfied, Marcus returned to his room, only to be startled by the noise again. This time it sounded like someone was picking the lock. Marcus dismissed the thought, believing the fence was tall enough to deter intruders and that the gate was password protected, making it difficult to break in. He wasn't worried, so he lay back down and fell asleep. Moments later, Marcus was jolted awake by a loud scream. He jumped out of bed and raced to Vivian's room, where he saw a shocking sight. A masked man was pointing a gun at Vivian, demanding money and jewelry. Marcus's first thought was that Vivian was too frail to handle such trauma, so he immediately sprang into action. Growing up with monotonous, exhausting work had sharpened his reflexes. He quickly disarmed the intruder, and the weapon fell to the floor. The intruder was shocked to see Marcus since he thought the elderly woman was alone. He hadn't even noticed Marcus until he kicked the weapon from his hand. Realizing he had to hit Marcus to escape, they got into a scuffle. Marcus didn't give the intruder any breathing room. He was the better fighter and knocked the intruder to the ground, but the man wasn't ready to give up. While Vivian called 911, the intruder tried to flee. He pulled out a small knife, and before Marcus could react, he plunged the blade into Marcus's stomach and jumped out through the window. The knife was small, but Marcus was hurt and needed urgent medical attention, or his condition could worsen. When emergency services arrived, Marcus had to be rushed to the hospital. While he was treated, Vivian sat beside his bed, showing unwavering loyalty. If Marcus could take a knife for her, it meant he would do anything for her. The doctors bandaged his wounds and cared for him until he recovered. When he was discharged, Vivian urged him to rest at her home for a few days before returning to work. But Marcus refused to listen. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone. What if something worse happened to her? Marcus returned to work and continued caring for Vivian. They talked a lot, and Vivian learned about Marcus's family. His father had passed away, leaving him with just his mother and a younger sister who lived in another city. His mother had been diagnosed with leukemia and needed a bone marrow transplant. They had been saving money for it, but it wasn't enough. When Vivian heard this, she reassured him that everything would be all right, reminding him he was young with a promising future, so he didn't need to worry. In the following month, Vivian's health deteriorated to the point where she no longer responded to her medications. Marcus called an ambulance, and Vivian was readmitted to the hospital. The doctors tried everything they could, but her cells continued to die. Even when the doctors expressed that there was no hope, Marcus refused to accept it. He believed in miracles and couldn't bear the thought of losing Vivian because they had built an unbreakable bond. He pleaded with her to fight for her life, holding her hand tightly and urging her to stay strong. As Vivian lay in the hospital bed, too weak to move, she reflected on her life with deep gratitude. Marcus was one of the best things that had ever happened to her in recent years, and she was glad the universe had given her this gift during her final moments. As dusk approached, she urged Marcus to go home, but he refused. Vivian wanted him to go back to his own mother, but Marcus wouldn't budge. His mother would be fine, but he needed to take care of Vivian. He stayed with her throughout the night, listening to her voice, which had become almost a whisper. She continued to thank Marcus for everything until she fell silent for several hours before dawn. At the same time, the monitor stopped beeping. Marcus screamed, not wanting to believe what was happening. When the doctor entered, he pleaded with him to wake Vivian, but the doctor only confirmed her death at 4:20 a.m. While her body was prepared for burial, Marcus couldn't comprehend what had happened. He fell into shock, remaining silent for a while. His benefactor was gone worse. His friend was gone. He loved Vivian so much that her death hit him like a ton of bricks. She was like the grandmother he never had. His heartbeat raced, and he nearly suffered heart failure as tears streamed down his face, trembling with grief. He cried so hard that his eyes burned and he lost his voice. He returned home and couldn't sleep, wishing life wasn't so cruel. It was so hard to move on, but he had to. He spent more than 3 days in the house, and his mother, hearing the news, came to comfort her son. A week later, Vivian was buried in the cemetery. Marcus stared at the gravestone for the last time. "You will always be in my heart," he said softly. He returned home and made plans to find a new job. A few weeks later, he heard a knock on his door. 3 men stood outside his house in expensive suits. Marcus was confused and a bit wary. One of them stepped forward and introduced himself as Vivian's lawyer. He then revealed the most shocking news Marcus had ever heard. Vivian had bequeathed all her wealth, assets, and business investments to him. Marcus was stunned and dismissed it as a joke. The lawyer handed him a document, and Marcus read the pages with his mouth agape in shock. Vivian was a millionaire with shares in top companies. She had built her business up from scratch and became wealthy by the time she was just 30. She was incredibly rich and had started buying properties, channeling all her energy into her business without ever marrying. At 40, she founded a charity for children and owned several charitable houses. Weeks ago, after Marcus saved her life from the intruder, she instructed her lawyer to bequeath her wealth to Marcus when she passed away. Now, Marcus was a millionaire. He was touched and felt honored to have been blessed by Vivian just for taking care of her. Now that Marcus had become a millionaire, he was able to finance his mother's surgery. He genuinely wouldn't have accepted such a gift if he hadn't offered her his seat months ago. His kindness and compassion had led to a lifetime of wealth. As dawn approached, The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the soft beeping of the monitor. Marcus watched Vivian intently, noting how her breaths became shallower, almost imperceptible. The night had felt like an eternity, and he couldn't shake the feeling of impending loss that loomed over him. He needed to stay strong for her. Just before the sun rose, the beeping stopped. The monitor flatlined, sending a chill down Marcus's spine. Panic surged through him. "Vivian, please," he yelled, grabbing her frail hand and shaking it gently. He didn't want to believe what was happening. When the doctor entered the room, he was met with a grim expression that confirmed Marcus's worst fears. "I'm so sorry," the doctor said softly. "She's gone." In that moment, time seemed to freeze. The weight of his grief was overwhelming, and he felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath him. The woman who had become his anchor, his confidante, was gone. He fell into a state of shock, unable to process the loss. The reality that Vivian had passed hit him like a ton of bricks. She was more than a friend, she was the grandmother he never had. The tears flowed freely as he realized that he would never hear her stories again or see her smile light up the room. As her body was prepared for burial, Marcus sat quietly, lost in his thoughts. His heart ached not just for the loss of Vivian, but for the life they could have shared together if fate had allowed it. He was left with a profound sense of loneliness, and his mind raced with memories of their time together, the laughter, the stories, the quiet moments that felt like home. Each recollection cut deeper, intensifying his sorrow. After several days of mourning, Marcus was still reeling from the loss. He couldn't bring himself to leave the house, afraid of facing the world without Vivian. But his mother, hearing the news, came to see him. She wrapped her arms around him, offering comfort and understanding. "It's okay to grieve, Marcus," she whispered, her own heart heavy with the knowledge of her son's pain. "She meant so much to you." A week later, Marcus stood at the cemetery, staring at Vivian's gravestone. The cold marble seemed to symbolize the finality of her departure. "You will always be in my heart," he said softly, placing a bouquet of flowers on the grave. It was a simple gesture, but it felt like the only way he could honor her memory. He turned away, wiping his eyes, determined to keep moving forward, even as the grief threatened to consume him. Back at home, he began to think about his future. He needed to find a job, to create a life that would make Vivian proud. In the days that followed, he applied to numerous positions but felt a lingering emptiness. Every time he sat at his computer, he could hear Vivian's voice encouraging him, telling him to keep going, to pursue his dreams. Her belief in him was a guiding light in his darkest moments. Then, one fateful afternoon, a knock on the door startled him. He opened it to find 3 men standing outside in expensive suits. Marcus felt a mix of confusion and suspicion wash over him. "Can I help you?" he asked, eyeing them warily. One of the men stepped forward, introducing himself as Vivian's lawyer. "We have important matters to discuss regarding Vivian's estate," he said, his tone serious yet compassionate. Marcus's heart raced. He didn't understand what this could mean. Was there more to her story than he realized? The lawyer revealed the most shocking news Marcus could have imagined. Vivian had bequeathed all her wealth, assets, and business investments to him. "She believed you were deserving of it all for the care and love you showed her," the lawyer explained, handing him a document filled with legal jargon. Marcus was stunned, disbelief washing over him. "This must be a joke," he stammered, shaking his head. But as he took the document and began to read, his mouth dropped open in shock. Vivian was a millionaire. She had shares in top companies and had built her empire from the ground up. She was not only wealthy but had devoted her life to philanthropy, starting foundations for children in need and supporting various charities. As the realization sank in, Marcus felt a rush of emotions: gratitude, disbelief, and a sense of responsibility. How could she have entrusted all of this to him? He thought back to their conversations, the laughter they shared, and the bond they had formed. She saw something in him that he had yet to recognize in himself. The lawyer continued, explaining that Vivian had instructed him to ensure Marcus received everything after her passing. It was a testament to the profound impact Marcus had made in her life. He was now a millionaire, a fact that felt surreal. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of the inheritance, Marcus knew he needed to honor Vivian's memory. With this new wealth, he could not only secure his future but also help others, just as she had done. He thought of his mother's medical bills and how desperately they needed assistance. The opportunity to finance her surgery suddenly felt like a reality. As he processed the whirlwind of emotions, Marcus felt a profound connection to Vivian. Her kindness had not only saved him but had also created a legacy of love and compassion that he was now a part of. He realized that her belief in him was more than just a gift, it was a call to action. Marcus knew he would use this wealth wisely, continuing Vivian's legacy by supporting charities, helping children, and perhaps even starting his own foundation in her honor. "Thank you, Vivian," he whispered, feeling her presence guiding him, reassuring him that he was never truly alone. As he made plans for the future, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would carry Vivian's memory in his heart, ensuring that her story of kindness and resilience would live on through him. After hearing the shocking news about Vivian's inheritance, Marcus felt a wave of responsibility wash over him. With this sudden wealth, he realized it was not just an opportunity to change his own life, but also the lives of others. He was determined to ensure that Vivian's legacy would not only be remembered but also continued for those in need. Marcus began planning the steps he would take. First, he contacted the hospital where his mother was being treated and arranged to cover her surgery and care expenses. With all the paperwork in order, he felt a little relief. His mother would not only receive the treatment she needed, but he could also take better care of her. After that, Marcus planned meetings with several lawyers and financial consultants to discuss the best ways to use his newfound wealth. He wanted to start a charity foundation, inspired by Vivian's passion for helping children and the less fortunate. He aimed to give back to the community that had supported him, especially after losing Vivian. He also decided to continue Vivian's business. With the skills he had acquired in his previous work experience, he felt confident enough to take over. He wanted to ensure that all of the efforts Vivian had put into her work would continue and thrive. He knew how hard she had worked to achieve all of it, and he didn't want that to go to waste. After several weeks of planning and strategizing, Marcus was finally ready to take his first steps. He invited some of Vivian's close friends and colleagues to a small gathering at his home. He wanted to share his plans and seek their support in making it happen. During the gathering, Marcus stood up and spoke passionately. "We all know how amazing Vivian was. She gave so much to all of us. Now, we have a responsibility to continue her legacy. I want to start a foundation to help underprivileged children, just like Vivian did, with the wealth I've received. I want to ensure that every child has the opportunity to succeed and achieve their dreams." Everyone in the room listened intently, many of them moved to tears. Some nodded in agreement, while others wiped away their tears. They knew the immense heart that Vivian had and how important this vision was. One of Vivian's close friends, a woman named Clara, stood up to voice her support. "Marcus, we are all here to back you up. Vivian would be so proud of you. Let's come together and make this dream a reality." The positive energy spread, and soon they began brainstorming ideas and resources to help children in their community. Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose, as if Vivian were right beside him, smiling with pride. Meanwhile, he also began adjusting his life. He spent more time with his mother, listening to her stories from the past and reminiscing about the fond memories they had with Vivian. They often enjoyed time together in the park, discussing their future plans and everything they wanted to achieve. For Marcus, every moment spent with his mother was an invaluable treasure. Days turned into weeks, and the foundation he had dreamed of started to take shape. Marcus and his team planned their first fundraising event. He couldn't wait to see how the people around him would respond. He wanted to inspire others to give back and contribute to the community. On the night of the fundraising event, Marcus felt a mix of nerves and excitement. He put on his best suit and stepped into the beautifully decorated room. As guests began to arrive, he greeted them with a broad smile and a heart full of hope. The event was a massive success. Many people came out to support the foundation, and they raised more funds than expected. Marcus felt touched to see so many people rallying to support Vivian's vision. That night, he spoke to the audience, expressing how important their contributions were. "This isn't just about money, it's about creating opportunities and giving hope to those in need. Let's work together to change these children's lives." After the event, Marcus felt his spirit lift once again. He realized he wasn't alone on this journey. With the support of those around him, he could achieve greater goals. He was committed to continuing Vivian's fight and everything she had done. This was a new journey, and he was ready to face it with all his heart. In the following months, the foundation continued to grow, providing aid to children and families in need. Marcus became an inspirational figure in his community, and everyone began to know him as the little hero who brought hope to many. With each step he took, he felt Vivian's presence, reminding him that kindness would always triumph over cruelty. As he gazed up at the night sky, the stars shining brightly, Marcus knew that Vivian had never truly left him. She lived on in every good deed Marcus performed, and in every smile given to the children who received a new lease on life. He vowed to keep fighting and continue the legacy of love that Vivian had bestowed upon him. Here's the continuation of Marcus's journey. As the months passed, the foundation gained traction. Marcus became more involved, traveling to schools and community centers to spread awareness about the foundation's mission. He wanted to inspire young people to believe in themselves and understand the power of giving back. One afternoon, he organized a workshop for local youth, inviting successful entrepreneurs to speak about their journeys. Marcus shared his own story, how he had gone from a caregiver to a millionaire, thanks to Vivian's generosity. He encouraged the kids to pursue their dreams, no matter how distant they seemed. "Every one of you has the potential to achieve great things," he said, looking out at the eager faces. "You just have to believe in yourselves and work hard. Remember, it's not just about what you can achieve for yourself, but how you can help others along the way." The response was overwhelming. The kids were inspired, and many expressed their desire to volunteer at the foundation. Marcus felt a surge of pride and hope. He realized he was creating a ripple effect, empowering others to make a difference. One day, while working late at the foundation's office, Marcus received a call from Clara. "Marcus, we've been invited to a regional conference for nonprofit organizations. They want to hear about our work and how we're making an impact." Marcus's heart raced. This was an opportunity to showcase everything they had accomplished and to network with other leaders in the field. "That sounds incredible, Clara. Let's prepare a presentation and make sure we shine." In the weeks leading up to the conference, Marcus and Clara worked tirelessly, gathering success stories, testimonials, and statistics on their impact. They wanted to show the world that their work mattered. The excitement built as the day approached. Finally, the day of the conference arrived. The venue was packed with people eager to learn and share ideas. Marcus stood backstage, feeling a mix of nerves and exhilaration. As he listened to other speakers share their journeys, he realized the importance of the community they had built. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding. He took a deep breath and began. "Hello everyone, I'm Marcus and I'm here to tell you about the Vivian Foundation, named after an incredible woman who taught me the true meaning of compassion and generosity." He shared Vivian's story, how she had transformed his life, and how he was now dedicated to transforming the lives of others. As he spoke about their project's educational programs, scholarships, and food drives, the audience listened intently, many nodding in agreement. "I believe that by investing in our children, we're investing in our future," Marcus concluded, his voice filled with passion. "Together, we can create a better world, one act of kindness at a time." The crowd erupted into applause, and Marcus felt a rush of gratitude. He had shared Vivian's legacy, and it resonated with so many. After the conference, he met with several potential partners and sponsors who were eager to support the foundation's work. Marcus exchanged contact information and made plans to follow up. This was just the beginning of a new chapter. Returning home, Marcus was filled with renewed energy. He knew that every moment he spent helping others was a way to honor Vivian's memory. Each success fueled his determination to do more. As the foundation continued to grow, Marcus decided to launch a mentorship program, connecting successful individuals with youth in need. He believed that personal connections could make a significant difference in someone's life. He wanted to create a network of support that would empower children to pursue their dreams. The program attracted mentors from various fields, and soon they had their first group of eager mentees. Marcus watched as connections were formed, and he felt a sense of pride. These young people were not just receiving guidance, they were becoming part of a larger community of support. However, as things progressed, Marcus faced challenges. There were moments when funding was tight, and he worried about maintaining the foundation's initiatives. At times, self-doubt crept in, and he questioned whether he could truly carry on Vivian's legacy. But each time he thought of her, he felt renewed strength. He remembered her unwavering spirit and commitment to helping others. One day, while reflecting at Vivian's gravesite, he whispered, "I will not let you down. Your legacy will live on, and I will do everything in my power to make a difference." That night, as he lay in bed, Marcus came up with an idea for a fundraising gala, an event to celebrate Vivian's life and raise money for the foundation. He wanted it to be a night of joy, filled with laughter, stories, and gratitude. Planning the gala took months, but every effort felt worthwhile. He enlisted the help of friends, volunteers, and even some of the kids from the mentorship program. Together, they transformed a local banquet hall into a stunning venue, adorned with lights and decorations that reflected Vivian's vibrant spirit. On the night of the gala, guests arrived dressed to the nines, excited to support a worthy cause. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding him. He opened the event with a heartfelt speech, sharing stories of the lives that had been changed thanks to Vivian's legacy. As the night progressed, guests mingled, bid on silent auction items, and donated generously. By the end of the evening, they had exceeded their fundraising goal, raising enough money to support their programs for the next year. Marcus stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by laughter and joy. He felt Vivian's presence in every corner. This was the legacy she had wanted, a community coming together to support one another. As the gala came to a close, Marcus reflected on his journey. He had transformed his pain into purpose, and through it all, he had learned the power of love, kindness, and community. He knew that while he had lost Vivian, her spirit would forever guide him. With a heart full of hope, Marcus was ready to embrace whatever came next. He was determined to keep pushing forward, to help others find their paths, and to honor the woman who had changed his life. And so, the journey continued, with Marcus leading the way, carrying Vivian's legacy in his heart, ready to make a difference in the lives of many more.